Hello everyone, and welcome back to Conspiraseed. Today we're going to be going over Tier 2 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg. As I mentioned before, the iceberg can be found at the link in the description if you're interested in looking at the iceberg as a whole. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with me today, and let's get into it. So I actually made a whole video on this already, so we're going to start with this one even though it's like at the end of Tier 2. If you want to learn more about it, click here to see the whole video. I will sum it up, however, in case you don't have the time or you just don't want to spend time watching my videos, that's fine. The Hinterkaifeck murders occurred in 1922 in Germany. There were a number of suspects and a number of people who claimed to be the murderers, but no one was ever arrested or named as a person or people who could have committed the murders. The murderer killed the Gruber family, which consisted of Andrea, his wife Kazilia, their daughter Victoria, her son Josef, Victoria's daughter Kazilia Jr., and their maid Maria. The maid and the 2-year-old Josef were found in the house days later, and the rest were found piled up in the barn on top of each other. Hinterkaifeck is actually one of my favorite topics that I've made a video on, so I do highly recommend watching the whole thing. There were even a number of people who visited the farm after they had been murdered, but none of them found the bodies. They would just show up and do their jobs, either fixing farm equipment or trying to sell something like door-to-door salesmen, and then they would leave. But just imagine being one of those people, like looking back to the time that you were on the farm and just knowing that there were 6 bodies within a few yards of you even, and you didn't know. I personally think that would like mess me up a lot, but I have extreme anxiety, so I guess it's really not that surprising. I still think about an earthquake that we had in Utah in 2020. It's been over 3 years since that happened. I still think about that every day. The Chicago Tylenol murders, which occurred in 1982, were a series of poisoning deaths resulting from cyanide-laced Tylenol capsules. The incident shook the nation and led to widespread panic and fear. 7 people died after consuming the laced product, prompting a nationwide recall on Tylenol products and the introduction of the tamper-proof packaging on the pharmaceutical industry. So like today, if you were to go get Tylenol, right, it has like a little thing at the top that you take off and it just kind of shows that it hasn't been tampered with. The Chicago Tylenol murders served as kind of a catalyst for significant changes in product packaging and safety regulations, leaving a lasting impact on public health and consumer protection. The incident just kind of is like a stark reminder, I guess, of the potential dangers associated with product tampering and the need for safety measures to safeguard public well-being. Like, if we can get this kind of protection for food as well. Have you guys seen those videos where someone like goes to the store and like they open up the ice cream and then they lick it and they're like, yeah, and they close the ice cream and put it back? Sickos. Throw them in prison.
Right to jail.
Throw away the key. I don't ever want to see him again. The KEDDIE murders, also known as the KEDDIE cabin murders, refer to a brutal and unsolved homicide case that occurred in KEDDIE, California in 1981. The victims were a family of 4. Sue Sharp, who is recently divorced, her 2 children, Dana and John, and Dana's friend, also named Dana. The crime took place inside a cabin where the family resided, and the victims were found tied up and beat to death. This is just a small community in California, and the case shocked it and drew significant media attention. Despite extensive investigations, multiple suspects, and various theories, no one has ever been convicted for the KEDDIE murders, leaving the case shrouded in mystery and causing never-ending fear and pain for the victims' surviving family members. Since the KEDDIE murders have been unsolved, it is still an open cold case. However, it does leave us the unanswered question about the motive of the killer or killers, as well as their identity, of course. I will say I've always wanted to live in a cabin in the woods and like just grow a garden and kind of like live off the land and stuff, but stories like this always make me think twice, you know, like I'm far enough away from people that they can't hear me scream, you know? I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, I have weapons, but like if I'm asleep, what good are they? The Las Cruces bowling alley massacre refers to an incident that occurred on February 10th, 1990 in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Two armed individuals entered the Las Cruces bowl and carried out the brutal attack, resulting in the deaths of 4 people and the severe injury of several others. The victims included the bowling alley's employees and customers who were shot during the robbery, even after complying with the robbers' demands. The case garnered significant attention and became one of the most notorious crimes in New Mexico's history. Despite initial arrests and trials, the true perpetrators remained at large for several years. First this, and now Walter White's out there slinging blue on the streets. New Mexico will never recover. The Upstairs Lounge arson attack, also known as the New Orleans Gay Bar Massacre, took place on June 24, 1973 in New Orleans, Louisiana. The Upstairs Lounge was a popular gathering place for the local LGBT community. That evening, an arsonist set fire to the stairwell leading to the lounge. The fire claimed the lives of 32 people, making it one of the deadliest attacks against the LGBT community in U.S. history at the time. The incident left the community devastated and traumatized, exacerbating the existing discrimination that they had already faced. Despite investigations, no one was ever charged or convicted for the arson attack. Not only did this happen during what is now Pride Month, but this video will be released just 5 days before the 50th anniversary of this event. So I mean, in my mind, it's just kind of crazy how the dates lined up. It happened in June, which is now Pride Month for, LGBT, and then the 50th anniversary of this will be 5 days after this video releases. This is kind of crazy. The I-70 killer, also known as the Midwest serial killer, was an unidentified serial killer who operated along the Interstate 70 corridor in the United States during the early 1990s. The killer targeted individuals at rest areas, gas stations, and other locations near the interstate. The victims were predominantly women who were sexually assaulted, robbed, and then brutally murdered. The I-70 killer's crime spree created a sense of fear and panic among communities along the highway, and law enforcement agencies worked diligently to apprehend whoever was doing this. Despite investigations and public appeals for information, the killer was never identified or captured. I know this is kind of something off topic, but hearing the name Midwest made me think about it. Why is Wisconsin a Midwest state? Call that Mideast. Utah is in the middle of the West, not Wisconsin. The West Mesa murders, also known as the Albuquerque serial killings, are a haunting and tragic chapter in the history of New Mexico. Lots happening in New Mexico, I guess. First the Las Cruces bowling, then Breaking Bad, and now this. Cannot catch a break. In 2009, the remains of 11 women were discovered buried in shallow graves on the West Mesa of Albuquerque. The victims were primarily young women involved in high-risk lifestyles such as prostitution or wrapped up in drug usage. The investigation into the West Mesa murders has been ongoing, with law enforcement tirelessly working to identify the perpetrator or perpetrators responsible for these heinous crimes. It really is sad though. A lot of unsolved murders are either people with high-risk lifestyles such as gang involvement or prostitution, or homeless people, and I think it's because they have the least amount of people looking out for them. It just makes me sad. Like there's got to be something that we as individuals can do to communicate to these people that like it's okay to try to break out of your bad situation, because I'll have your back. Or I don't know, man, but it's just I want to do something to help these people. I'm unsure how. The Colonial Parkway murders refer to a series of unsolved homicides that occurred between 1986 and 1989 in the area surrounding the Colonial Parkway in Virginia. The victims, who were all young couples, were found dead under mysterious circumstances. The cases involved brutal killings, including shootings, stabbings, and strangulations. The exact number of victims is disputed, but it's believed that at least 8 people were killed. Of course, it remains an unsolved mystery despite extensive investigations by both local and federal law enforcement agencies. The lack of leads and the apparent lack of a clear motive have made it even more difficult to bring the perpetrators to justice. It seems like someone was just doing this for fun and not necessarily because they had any vendetta against any of these people. Hopefully one day these killers will be brought to justice and we can provide some sort of closure to the victims' families. The Doodler, also known as the Black Doodler, see, this is what I'm talking about. That is a bad serial killer name. They didn't call him like the Black Phantom Killer or nothing. They called him the Black Doodler. If I was a serial killer and they named me the Black Doodler, I would turn myself in. I'd be like, no, give me a cooler name. Anyway, the Black Doodler was a serial killer who operated in San Francisco, California during the mid-1970s. The killer targeted primarily young gay men and is believed to have murdered at least 5 victims. The nickname Doodler stemmed from the killer's habit of sketching caricatures of his intended victims before engaging in sexual acts with them. The Doodler's victims were usually found stabbed to death, often with the bodies left in secluded areas. Despite the severity of the crimes and initial attention from law enforcement, the case remains, of course, unsolved. The fear and stigma surrounding homosexuality at the time may have hindered the investigations and led to reluctance among potential witnesses to come forward. I can't believe that I'm doing 2 tiers from this iceberg in the month of June, and one of them has not 1 but 2 killings of gay people during Pride Month. It seems disrespectful. Also, the Doodler, it reminds me of like a Batman villain, like the Riddler almost, except he's like, hey Batman, check this out, and he like whips out a pencil and like a notepad, and he's like, find this person, this is who I'm gonna kill. I don't know, that could be like a cool concept for a comic book. Like he like draws the person he's gonna kill and he's like, good luck Batman. DC, you can have that one for free, but for more ideas I'm gonna need a commission of some sort. The Frog Boys, also known as the Worry family case, refers to a tragic and unresolved disappearance that occurred in South Korea in 1991. 5 boys between the ages of 9 and 13 went out to catch frogs near their hometown of Daegu, but never returned. A massive search operation was launched involving thousands of volunteers, police, and military personnel even, but no trace of the boys was found for more than a decade. In 2002, a man discovered skeletal remains in the nearby Mount Warryong, which were later identified as the missing boys. The cause of their death remains unknown, as their remains provided very limited information. The Frog Boys case has left unanswered questions, fueling speculation and conspiracy theories, of course. Now, this sad story is just one of the examples of why parents are giving their kids less and less freedoms to just go out and about with their friends, especially at a young age. I know this happened decades ago, but those changes don't just happen overnight. It's a gradual change, and this is just one of the cogs in the machine of change. As a society, it feels like we're going backwards. We need to be able to give children, I think, more freedom to run around outside and play and have a good time. And there's like a pond like 2 miles from my house and like a mile from my parents' house where I used to live, and just walk down there all the time, look for snakes, catch frogs, go fishing. And it's just like, it just seems like that doesn't happen as much anymore. And maybe I'm, old or senile or jaded or whatever, but it seems like parents have a pretty good case for not letting their kids go out anymore. And this kind of thing just kind of perpetuates that, unfortunately. Look at my dog. She slept. That's the end of Tier 2 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I'm having a much better time with this one than I am the other one. I did mention in a comment, maybe one day if I get big enough, I'll make a Patreon and I'll put the Disturbing Reddit Post Iceberg on my Patreon or something, but it's not very YouTube friendly and I'm pretty grossed out by it, so it wouldn't be for a long while. I'm so far away from even considering a Patreon. But thank you all for choosing to spend some time with me today. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all the love that I get from you guys. It means the world to me. In a world of darkness, you are my light, and my dog, of course. But I appreciate each and every one of you, and I love seeing the regulars in the comments, and it just means a lot that you guys watch these videos. But if you made it this far, feel free to comment down below your favorite part of each video or your least favorite part of each video, whatever you want. But I appreciate each and every one of you. Truly I do. I'll catch you guys in the next one.